Good morning to all of you. Now, as the topic is advanced MOSFET devices, so this means with a massive scaling in the device, and we this CMOS mouse devices when it started in the early 80s, they had a geometric dimension of 5 micron or so. But presently we have reached where we are able to have channel lengths of say 12 nanometer or 14 nanometer, and the sphere short channel effects comes into picture when you reduce the dimension because of quantum effects. And to further downsizing of these devices will not be possible in the present shape, so certain new structures are also being discussed, so we will see some of those issues. Now you can see this is a cross section of the device, and it gives the band diagrams, and this gives you the field. And what is happening is this is the gate oxide. You are reducing the oxide thickness to, if you have to reduce the gate length L, and finally what happens is here, because the source to drain distance, which is the channel length, if it is reduced, and the electric field in this region, which is a channel, it increases. And if the electric field increases, and there are sphere short channel effects, particularly the hot carrier injection, and you have to, for suppressing those, various techniques are used. And not only the field in you once you reduce the channel length, you have to reduce the gate oxide thickness also, because you have to invert the channel here, and the gate voltage also is reducing. So at a lower voltage you have to invert the channel, so which means this oxide has to be, this capacitance has to be more, so your T-ox has to be reduced. So but how much further you can reduce, like in 20 or 25 angstrom is the gate oxide for today's for around say 65 or 45 nano 65 to 45 nanometer transistor. But further reduction of gate oxide, it's a it becomes problematic because of the sphere gate leakages. And to make that kind of a planar, uniform, very thin silicon dioxide is not that uh, feasible practically. So people are looking for various high K dielectric like hafnium and other oxides. So this is the energy band diagram. You can see when the voltage, when the gate and drain voltage is applied, how the electric field, how the potential varies. And now this is a very simple equation of the current. Now we have to maximize the current. This is how you can maximize the current in this equation. So either you can reduce L, if because L is coming in the denominator. If L is reduced, ID sat will increase. Another option is this factor, which is some body effect coefficient. If you change the body effect coefficient, if you try to reduce, then also ID sat will increase. Another is C gate, which is the gate capacitance. If you increase capacitance, then also ID sat will increase. So gate capacitance increases. I told it is capacitance is epsilon A by T. So there is a thickness, it comes in the picture. So let us see. Now let us see the first. This is a mobility. How you increase the mobility? Because when you reduce the dimension of the device, your doping level increases. The doping increases, mobility suffers. In fact, mobility degrades. But there are ways to improve the mobility, and that is some of the one technique is you use a strained silicon. That when for that 45 below 60 nanometer, strained silicon is used. Strain means you have to introduce stress in the silicon. So how you introduce a stress? You put some germanium. It can be a compressive stress or it can be a tensile stress. So it is a compressive stress for NMOS and tensile for PMOS. And you have to, like silicon is a lattice, is a crystalline structure. So to in a crystalline structure, you have to do the epi growth of a germanium in that to make increase the mobility. Another is you can increase current. Next is your capacitor. How you can increase the gate capacitance? You have to use very thin dielectrics, and you have to use high K dielectrics, high K dielectric also. But if you use high K dielectric, then because of the work function, you cannot adjust VT, and with the poly as a gate, so you have to use metal instead of poly. So that is why they call it HKMG, high K metal gates. The whole process changes. Another is the body effect, this M. If you have to reduce the body effect, and that there are instead of using a bulk silicon, you use silicon on insulator. Like there is an insulator layer, and these devices, transistors, are sitting on an insulator. So your bottom, your capacitances, junction capacitances are cut because there is an insulator there. And L, of course, you have to reduce dimension, and then maintaining this parameter while scaling. You see, this parameter you don't have much freedom. VT, okay, you can reduce to some extent, but you cannot reduce beyond to some extent. So each point is now discussed. What are the issues? Like first, C gate, you have to maximize the gate capacitance. So what are the issues in maximizing the gate capacitance? Means you have to reduce the dielectric. Reducing dielectric increases your gate gate input leakages. But how you can do to minimize those? You can use nitrogen doping. You can dopant penetration from the polysilicon. It reduces to some extent, but you is ultimately you can the minimum amount of the minimum TOX which you can have is 15 angstrom or 1.5 nanometer, and beyond that it's not possible to reduce using silicon dioxide. And then you have to go for other materials which are high K. Tantalum is there, hafnium is there. There are some other materials which are being used. Mobility enhancement, I told you, it is by way of introducing a stress. So you can have you have to introduce a strain in the silicon. You can have enhanced electron mobility and hole mobility, and the enhancement factor like for electron is 1.8 times you can increase the mobility, and for holes 1.6. So you normally people are putting germanium, like germanium layers on basic silicon which is a CZ crystalline structure. Based on, you have to put germanium on that. You can introduce body effect reduction. This M parameter you have to reduce the body effect. So the body effect is basically now in a bulk silicon. So since the body is the silicon is the bulk and all, there is a well on top of it, and the transistor is sitting in the well. So this body has an effect on in terms of your substrate currents and substrates the capacitance from the well to the substrate, that comes into picture. So if you have to cut those, you have to put an insulator layer. You put an insulator layer, and directly on the top of the insulator, wells and the devices are sitting. So you are able to reduce the body effect. And this kind of that process is known as a silicon on insulator, SOI. So in SOI, you are able to reduce these effects, and you are able to increase the current to some extent. These are some of the effects which are, when you reduce the dimension, you get what is known as a short channel effects. So like hot electron, mobility reduction, velocity saturation, DIBL, gate oxide reliability. And so we will just take a look at all these. You can see this is source, this is drain. If you reduce this dimension, then your electric field, which is electric field in this region, which will be VD minus VD sat divided by L depletion. This is L depletion. So this electric field in this region, which is close to drain, is very high. What happens is, if the electrons will get accelerated towards the drain, and they will collide with the lattice atoms, and they will generate secondary EH pair. So a lot of EH pairs are generated, and what happens is that electrons, plenty of electrons, they are collected towards the drain, because drain is a positive, and some of these electrons will be collected by the gate also. So some of these electrons, they have so high energy, they can penetrate this black gate oxide, and they will get collected at the gate. So it results in gate current, and some of the electrons are collected to a drain. And what happened to the holes? Holes will go to the substrate VB, because it is at a lower potential. So the holes will get attracted to the substrate. So in the sense, you will have substrate currents now. So you will have substrate currents, and so you have to control this hot electron, and it, because it will degrade the oxide, because some of the charges may get accumulated inside the oxide also, which will later on change the drift, the VT. So these kind of effects it will have. So this is all which is written here, and you can see here, and this is IDS by VDS curve, and this is a GDS, which is a G naught, which is basically the inverse of 1 by RDS output. It's a conductance. So we have plotted conductance with respect to VDS. So normally the you can see these this is with a long channel and a short channel. So long channel is almost linear, but short channel, you can see as you increase the as you lower the VDS, you can see the GDS is how the GDS is getting increased. Ideally, GDS should be close to zero, because your R naught, it should be infinite. So conductance should be zero, but this is not zero in case it varies with VDS. So these kind of effects are there. So this, again, this is a small signal model which I will skip. Now there's a question of velocity saturation, because the velocity, normally drift velocity is proportional to electric field, and mobility is the proportionality constant. But if you keep on electric field, the drift velocity is not proportional to. Okay, this is till at some field, at high field, drift velocity saturates, and this equation does not vary. So it does not respond to increase with the increase in electric field. It becomes saturated. So that is known as a saturated VD. The velocity saturates that at electric field, and that electric field is 10 raised to the power 7 volt per micron, and that is a velocity saturated electron. So you, even if you increase the voltages, you will not be able to increase the current, because your velocity has saturated, mobility has saturated, and there is no further values which it can increase. So this is the graphs which shows, you can see this is the current, this is the VDS. So as you increase VDS, your current is increasing till this point only. After this point, it is saturated. So if you increase the VDS, it is not getting any effect because of velocity saturated electron. So the velocity this mobility cannot be increased further. So this, the saturation current will be, now if your L effective is lower, the velocity gets saturated earlier than the electric field. As you are seeing, this is the normal curve, solid line. But if you increase your L effective, when it becomes low, your velocity gets saturated earlier. You can see the dotted curve. So this is a very simple explanation. This is source, drain. Phi S is surface potential, which is a channel potential. Okay, so now you increase, you apply the voltages here, connect source to 0, connect some drain volt potential like VDS. Then what happens? You start increasing the drain potential. Okay, VDS, you are applying positive VDS. So in energy band diagram, how it will show? It will go down, because it's a potential energy, QE. So you are seeing this. So it will go, as you start increasing the potential, so it is going like this, it is going like this. So the electron flow, this is what the level. So this level, electrons are easily able to cross from here to here, and electrons, massive electron will flow from source to drain, and the current will flow from D to S on the other side. Another effect is poly depletion. You see, if you, what happens is, in a PN junction diode, so there is a depletion region is caused. So in the poly also, if you apply a positive potential here, okay, so this air, there will be, this is the dark one is a gate oxide, but this region, because the poly will be depletion, a depletion layer will be formed here also in the poly, and this depletion region is depleted of charge. It's just like a dielectric. So there was this gate oxide dielectric was also there, and now you have this poly, this one, this one also is a dielectric. So the dielectric increases now. You can see this. So once this dielectric increases because of poly depletion, the thickness increases, the capacitance decreases. So it results in decrease in current. So effective gate oxide thickness increases. Now these are some of the new device structures which are proposed. So you can see, you, this is silicon, you can have a dual gate. What happens is when the dimension becomes smaller, the gate loses control over the channel. So the people have proposed you should have two gates, dual gate. So you can see here, this is source, this is drain, this is one gate, this is another gate. So earlier what was happening is this gate was not there, there is only one gate top. Okay, but this gate, what happens is this gate loses control over the channel. So the people are proposing you can have a dual gate, and not only dual gate, you can have a tri gate. You can have a gate on either side, or you can have a gate on this side also, this side also. You can enclose also, right? So these are some of the structures which people are working on this. So all these devices, they are dual gate, but this is planar, this is FinFET, this is vertical dual gate. Okay, this is a planar. The gate is in one plane. This is vertical. This is the gate. You can see this. This is the gate. Okay, so here this is the gate. Source drain will be on this side, and this is a FinFET kind of structure. This is the gate. Source drain will be like this. So various fins can be added. So these are some of the devices. Here also it is very, you are clear. Okay, so this is the gate, and channel will be formed here below this. So this is source and this is drain. So but fabrication of these devices, it's not that easy. You can see the, even by the shape wise also, and so this is one 3D view of a FinFET. You can very clearly see this is one fin, this is source, this is drain, and what is the channel length? Channel length is this much here. So this is the dimension here, which given, this is L of gate, this one small red one, this is length of the gate here, because channel will be found here only. So these kind of devices, FinFET, they are particularly Intel has two generations of FinFET at 14 nanometer and 22 nanometers. So all the microprocessor which are being made, they are having a FinFET. So another is the SOI, silicon on insulator. So what is this structure is? On, you have a box, means a buried oxide. So this is a oxide layer. Okay, and device transistor is made on the top of oxide. So you can see there will not be any junction capacitance here in the bottom. So this, because all these devices are sitting on the top of this. So the substrate is completely cut. So substrate effect, parasitic, which were caused due to substrates, those will not be here in this kind of devices. So this is a partially depleted and some fully depleted device in the region. This is a partially depleted, so there is a depletion region. In fully depleted device, there is no depletion region. That is the difference. And these two devices, so you can see this is some of the characteristics. This is the characteristics ID versus VDS for a FinFET. This is a 15 nanometer drain current versus drain voltage, and threshold voltage is 200 millivolt, sub threshold 72 millivolt per decade, off current is 70, this nanoampere per micrometer, and Tibble is this much. These are some curves which people have obtained. Now, but for devices is okay, these advanced, but the issue is their fabrication is more complex, particularly because many fins have to be made, and the modeling part is also, you have to develop, the modeling part is also not that easy. So design rules also, because there are many contact design rules also have to be revisited for FinFET. So these are the issues. Now both, if conventional coexist in the same chip, things get more complex, because you may not need in a chip all transistors to be based on FinFET. You will need a conventional MOSFET also, but then making conventional MOSFET and FinFET in the same process on the same substrate, again things becomes more complex. So these are some of the issues with respect to this. And one of the important thing is, you see, this quantum, we talk about quantum mechanical effects. What are those quantum mechanical effects? You see, if this is the electron on this side, if here is a potential barrier, this is some distance x. So there is a electron wave. You see, what is the Schrodinger wave equation means? The electron can act as a particle also, or act as a wave also, and the Schrodinger equation defines that. And then we xi x is a probability of finding an electron. So wave equation means the electron is just a wave, and you can define the like availability of electron at a particular place by that equation. So what this quantum mechanical tunneling means, though the electron which is on this side of this potential, it has low energy, it has to peak to it needs some energy to reach this, then only it can cross this hill. But electron doesn't have that energy, so this means it cannot cross as a particle. But as a wave, they say that in this side it has some probability that electron is existing here on this side. So then how it has come from here to here, whence there is a very steep potential wall is there. So then the theory is, they say that this electron has tunneled through this. And but if this width, which is L, is more, then electron tunneling is not possible. When it becomes less, electron tunneling is possible. And there is some mathematical explanation, but for only thing is this height and this width, it depends, like at a particular height and at a particular width, this electronic tunneling starts occurring. So which means, though the electron doesn't have sufficient energy to reach this peak and cross that potential wall, but it can tunnel through the wall, and you will have there is a fair amount of probability of finding the electron across this. And that is the reason you will have lot of leakages current if your gate oxide is made so thin, and then it will affect off-state leakages. This means the transistor doesn't act as a good switch. You have off-state leakages. So these are some of the effects which are shown in the quantum mechanical. Now, based on, there are so many devices which we talked based on this quantum mechanical effects also, and which are quantum dots, your tunneling devices, single electron transistors, and all these things, the resonant tunneling diodes. So many things are being researched, but all these devices, making chips, making circuits based on this in the next 10-15 years is doesn't seem practical. So but a lot of research is going on in all these different areas, and how long it will take, it's difficult to say. And this, I will skip some of these because this is just only a research part, and on these tunneling diodes and things like that. And but I will shift to, because we wanted to make this short course relevant. And what we are doing is, we have discussed the analog design, we have discussed the front end layout, and we have discussed the verification, simulation of digital circuits, simulation of analog circuits. Now we have to see, let us take one example as a test case, and we will see how we can design this. So now this we have taken one very practical example. So this is a ADS chip, ADS 1218. It is sold. It is being sold in the market. The number is 1218. So it's an A to D converter, and it's a 24-bit. Now, whatever from application point of view, most of the circuits, because then the world is analog, so most of the circuits are analog in nature. But we prefer to do digital processing. There is an advantage of digital processing in the terms like noise margins are more. It's easy to make digital circuits. It's easy to show digital data. So there is some advantages in doing digital processing, digital transmission. You can see that even some 15-20 years back, even your radio, TV, telephony, they were transmitted analog signals, so there were more noise. And but once it switched to a digital communication, the noise is eliminated. It's very clear. So there are certain advantages, and processing of digital signals is also very easy as compared to analog circuits. But the word is analog from the word. So what happens is, from the word you will get analog inputs only. There cannot be any digital inputs. Okay, so you will get analog input. So but you want to process in the digital side. So what you have to do, you need a analog to digital converter. Okay, and similarly after processing, the whatever output you have to send to the external thing. That also again you have to convert back to analog. A very good example is like if you have to make a automatic system to control the temperature. So there are many in rooms. You can set the temperature should be 22 or 21 degrees centigrade, and the system should make like provisions for setting that temperature in a auto mode. So now what is that you will need? So first of all, you will need a sensor which can sense the temperature. Okay, if the temperature is more than 21 degree, it has to give a signal to the AC plant, to the air conditioner to turn it on. And once the AC turns on, the temperature starts falling. And once the temperature falls below 20 degree, then again the sensor will give its output some 20 degrees centigrade, and then there is a control electronics which has to decide. And based on 20 degree, it will decide, it will take a decision and give a signal to the AC to shut down. Okay, so then the temperature starts rising, and once it has risen, so you can set that limit to 22 or 23. Again, it has to give a signal to switch on. So switch on, switch off. Some control part is there which is deciding that. And there is a sensor part which is sensing the temperature, control electronics, some actuator which is giving. And because all these values storage 21, whether you want temperature 21.1, 22, 23, 24, it's very easy, you can program. So this processing part, if it is in a digital, it's very easy. But on the interfaces, you will have A to D and D to A, because you have to convert this. So that is why these A to D and D to A, they are very, very important. So you can see most electronic systems today, they are mixed signals. Like any signal you can, any system you can see, your all these pictures are shown here. Now there are two issues. Once you can have a complete system on a PCB, you have a big card, you have digital circuits, analog circuits on the same. But now the trend is you can reduce the size of the PCB. You can make a monolithic circuit. Okay, either you can have on the same substrate, you can put various chips, various circuits on the same, what is known as a system on chip. So system on chip either can be few dies which are maybe multiple dies which are bonded together in one module, which is known as a multi-chip module, or all these circuits can be on a single substrate also, which is a monolithic circuit. Now this is one example. This is a 11-bit 50 kilo samples per second sample rate ADC, which was made in 1954. You can see this is it is a huge size. This is 1954. This is 66. This is also it's an 8-bit 10 MSPS ADC. This was made in 66. So this ADC, you can see it's a 2-inch, 4-inch, 1.8 watt of power. This also ADC 120 it's a 12-bit ADC, 40 microsecond sample rate. This was made somewhere in 80s. And now you can see this is 2-inch into 4-inch. Now this is a very small. You can see it is, you can compare. So, and here it is a 10-bit or 12-bit, here it is 24-bit. So resolution is so high, you can see the size so less. So these are some of the advantages of making this. Now, why monolithic system? Like if you have a board which is shown here, okay, instead of putting all these components in a board, if you put all these components on a single chip, which is a system on chip, what are the advantages? Another advantage is, of course, you will get less area, less power. You can see this board, it getting transferred in a single chip. Look, okay, so when the size is reduced, it becomes a portable. You can transfer from, it's a portable. Then the cost of volume, if you are making this chip in volumes, the cost is very less as compared to this. If you are making in volumes, okay, then reliability is very high, because in a PCB you have tracks. These tracks, they are not that reliable as in a chip. So it is, reliability is very high. Performance can be enhanced. How? Because if you have some analog signal which has to be transferred from here to here in a PCB, in a chip it has to, the signal has to be transferred over very small distances. So the performance will, your parasitics will be much less. Board is very big, chip is very small, 2 mm, 3 mm. Okay, so the parasitics will be less and you can get high performance. Operation speed can be high, power consumption can be low, system is portable. So you can have both analog and digital system on a same chip. So these are some of the advantages. Now we have to design both digital circuit as well as analog circuits in the same chip. If we are using a lower node, lower like small channel transistors, the digital has lot of advantages, but analog doesn't have many advantages in using low channel transistors, because the power supply gets reduced, and if you don't get, you will not get, since the noise margins are same. So where you will suffer, you will mainly suffer because of your input output range. Output range cannot be, because your VDD is falling, your output range will be less, your dynamic range will be less, your threshold voltage is same, so you will not get enough headroom to difficult to design circuits. Moreover, since the chip is very small, so there will be some high speed digital circuits which are sitting very close to your critical analog part. If some of the analog may be a very sensitive amplifier, so it will have coupling. So it will, digital circuits are noisy, because noisy means the signals change very fast, and that can get coupled to the analog part. So here a high speed analog, high speed digital and analog, they are sitting close in a very small area. So these are some of the design issues which you have to take care, but overall circuit performance increases. So now let us talk about what is an ADC. So we are designing 12118, which is an analog to digital converter. So what is the meaning of ADC? This is an analog signal here, it's given. So if you see, this is the amplitude, this is time. So it's a continuous time, continuous amplitude signal. Okay, the signal is a continuous signal. So what we have to do, from a continuous signal, we have to make it discrete time and discrete amplitude. Okay, so how we have to do, either we can make it first discrete time and then discrete amplitude, or we can have first discrete amplitude and then discrete time. So let us say we sample it. How to make it a discrete time? So we sample. This was a continuous signal. So I will say that I will not take all these all these values, I will sample at some time. Okay, say 1 megahertz frequency. So these we will consider only these points which are shown in this curve, this red dots. We will consider only these values, right? So now this is very clear. If it depends on the sampling speed, if you are sampling at a very high speed, you will have many of these dot points. So now there is a Nyquist rate, Nyquist criteria. What that means? This wave will have certain frequency. If you sample at twice the frequency of this wave, you will be able to reconstruct the signal from the sampled points. Okay, so from this, which is a continuous time signal, we have made discrete points. In between, we are leaving that. We have forgotten that. We are considering only these points. But we should be able to convert back to the original signal also. Okay, you understand my point? We should be able to get back to that. So its signal should not lose. So we have to sample at that particular frequency, and that Nyquist rate criteria gives that. So this one is a sampling rate, so which sets the bandwidth. Okay, then another is, you can see here, this is quantization. Quantization means, now if say this value is 1, this is 1.2, this is 1. This will maybe 1.3, this is 1.4. Now you have sampled at say 1 nanosecond, 2 nanosecond, 3 nanosecond. In a gap of 1 nanosecond you are sampling, but this value is 1.1, this is 1.2, and this is 1.3. Now in this, it's a discrete, all amplitude values are there, right? But here you cannot have all amplitude values, right? You will make the amplitude also discrete. Like I will consider 0 to 0.1 as 0.1 only, 0.1 to 0.2, 0.2 only, because 0.1 to 0.2 volt, there are many values, 0.11, 0.12, but those values I will consider only 0.2 only. Okay, so this like this. So here the quantization is delta. So this is 2 delta, 3 delta. So all these values, they are considered 1 only. All these values will get 0, 1, 0 only. All these values. All these values, which is delta, which can be some 100 millivolt or 200 millivolt, they will get this code only. Okay, so this is one LSB. So this is quantization, and it will set the accuracy. Quantization sets the accuracy, and sampling, this sets the bandwidth. So there is a trade-off between resolution and speed. You cannot get a very high speed. So this is the resolution in terms of bits. This is the sampling rate. So if you want high resolution, you have to sample at a lower frequency, and if you want to sample at a very high frequency, you cannot get very high resolution. Okay, so these are the various architectures of A2D which are used. This is a sigma delta ADC, which is used for many industrial sensor applications. This is used in voice. This is used in data acquisition. Pipeline ADCs are very fast ADCs. You can sample at a very high. You can see 100 megahertz, 1 gigahertz sample rate, but you will not get more than 12, 13 or 8 to 12, 14 bits. So this is used in video, IF sampling, high speed instrumentation, video processing, where you have to send pictures like a video or a picture. So you have to sample at a very high, because video is changing. So you have to sample at a very high and send the data. So these kind of things you have to do. Now to design an ADC, there are various errors which you have to keep in mind. So one is DNL is a DNL, INL, monotonicity, missing code, gain error, offset error. So these are the 6 main error. In the offset means, like this is the curve, this dotted line. Ideally it should be D out versus V in. Okay, it's an V in will be the analog voltage and distal out. This is the transfer characteristic. It should start from origin 0, 0. It should be like this. If there is an offset, it will start with this offset. You can see it will go like this. There is a gain error, like ideally should be this, and you are getting, there is some error in the gain. Okay, there is a missing code here rather than a step. So the one code 100 is missing. Okay, so you are getting a missing code. Monotonicity means as the analog signal, analog voltage increases, your digital signal should go on increasing, like 001, 101, like this. But once there can be a problem if the analog signal, analog voltage increases, your digital signal can decrease also. So it's not monotonous. Okay, then there is an integral nonlinearity error and a differential nonlinearity error. This is, you can see here, step sizes are different. So the in both these cases, so you have to adjust these errors. You have to make a system, a chip where all these errors are not taking place. So we have attempted to make an oversampled ADC. This oversampled ADC means, though the Nyquist criteria says we will sample at twice the rate, but here in oversampled ADC we sample at a very high frequency, like 2000 times or 1000 times than the signal. So what happens is, when you do oversampling, you sample at a very high rate, your anti-aliasing filter is reduced and a very high resolution is possible. And your analog circuitry is not is relatively small, but your digital circuitry becomes more complex, as we will see in this. Now, what is the basic principle of oversampling? You see, if you have a signal of bandwidth FB, so how you will represent that signal? This is that dark blue. So this is, if you are seeing that FB minus FB, this is, you will represent the signal like this. But the noise spectral density after quantization, noise spectral density is given by this. So del square by 12 is a quantization noise. Okay, so the noise of this signal in the complete bandwidth fs by 2, you multiply by fs, because this is fs by 2 here and minus fs by 2 here, so total is fs. So this is fs, this is the noise spectral density which is given here. It will be like this. This is the quantization noise, blue one. But what is the quantization noise in the, because your signal is still bandwidth only FB, fs is much more than the bandwidth. Like for example, if your baseband signal is 1 megahertz, we sample at 1000 times more. So 1000 times more means 1000 megahertz, which is a 1 gigahertz. So this fs is 1 gigahertz. So we are sampling at a very high. So the quantization noise is this total, but what matters for us is the noise in the signal, which is in this curve. So in this curve, if we have to find the noise, then you have to divide by FV. This is FV, right? Because this is the total. This is the total spectral density, and you have to Fs. You have to multiply by 2FV. Okay, so this is the noise you get, and as you can see here, if you have m is the oversampling ratio, if m is more, your noise will get reduced. So this is what it seems. So this is the signal FB. Otherwise, for a sampler, you will have this much noise if you sample as per Nyquist criteria. So your noise is very high, PSD. But if you sample at oversampling, your noise is getting spread across a wide spectrum like this. It is getting spread. This area is same as this area, but what is happening is, if you sample at a very high frequency, the noise is getting distributed across that spectrum. You can see this. Okay, this area and this area are both same. Fs is very high, but for us, signal bandwidth is this only. Okay, so the noise in the signal bandwidth is getting reduced, because noise is getting outside your bandwidth. Okay, so for a first order, you can see this curve. For a first order, this, if you sample based on Nyquist criteria, you have a very high noise, quantization noise. So that is why you will not be able to get very high resolution. But if you sample at a very high frequency, your noise is getting distributed across that spectrum, and within the signal you have very less noise. And what you have to do is, now this noise can be easily removed by digital means. So you can make a a circuit where we can eliminate this noise, but within the signal band, there is very less noise. So this is the advantage of this kind of a system. This is known as a sigma delta ADC, oversampling ADC. So this is how it is done. Sigma and delta. So sigma means we have to design a sigma delta modulator. So sigma means addition, and delta means integration. Okay, so you are doing a sigma delta. There is a sigma delta modulator. I think this is the function. This is the input voltage. It comes, say let us see this. What if the input voltage comes? You integrate that input voltage, do give it to a comparator. Okay, so this is an analog comparator. So one end is ground. So if this voltage is more than 0, it will generate 1. If this voltage is less than 0, it will generate 0. Okay, then so it output here it's 1010 in terms of that. Here you sample. There is a sine wave, but you sample the input, give this sampled input to the integrator. This integrator, it will compare, it will generate 1 and 0. 1 and 0 give to a 1 bit DAC. It will compare with V reference, this value. If this is 1, it will compare and it will generate analog value. And this analog value is subtracted from this. So in this loop, so here you will generate a sequence of ones and zeros will be generated here. And finally, this is how it's a simple modulator. So you can see this is the original green one is the original original waveform, and this is the modulator, which is the blue one. It will appear like this. Okay, so this is the circuit which how it is done. So basically what happens is I will remove I will not go to some of these things. So this what we have implemented is this is a second order sigma delta, and sigma delta, it will generate a sequence of ones and zeros. Then there is a digital filter. It will filter the a lot of zeros and ones which are coming. It will remove all those things. And now there is a programmable gain amplifier, PGA, and there is a mux, because it has 4 channels. You can see here, rather it's a differential signal, so 8 lines are there, but since it's a differential, so 4 into 2, 8. So that is why it's an analog mux. And this is a gain amplifier. This you can program the gain from 1 is to 128. You can by digitally you can program. And this also has a calibration and overrange detection and things like this. So this is some of the specification. It will have 24-bit resolution, PGA 1 to 128. So oversampling, maximum oversampling is 2048. So you are 2048 times the Nyquist rate you are sampling this, and these are some of the other capabilities of this. This is a radiation hardened. This device should be prone to any radiation. So this is the now. So this is the main circuit here. So this is the first part of the modulator. So in this you can see it's a switched capacitor circuit. Switched capacitor in the sense there is one capacitor Cref, there is another capacitor Cs, and there is another capacitor feedback capacitor Cf. So we have made this amplifier. There is a PGA. You can see there is a gain amplifier also, and second order sigma delta. There is a second order, means there are 2 stages of sigma delta, the first stage and second stage. First stage of sigma delta modulator and PGA gain amplifier. And this PGA and first stage of this, they are joined, they are put in this block. So this is the most critical block here. Though these are switches, these are clocks, but these switches are also realized in terms of transmission gates. So this is the most critical part, and this is the second stage of the sigma delta modulator. And it will generate, here is a analog comparator and here is a latch. It will generate a sequence of zeros, one sufficient data, and then that data is fed to a digital filter, which filters these, which reduces the to the desired number. So this is how the scheme is. And now the question is here, since there are few things which are important. It's a correlated double sampling. So what is the meaning of a correlated double sampling? You see, in a sample and hold circuit, if you have studied, what happens is a signal is, or I can go to the board if possible. Possible? That will be easy to explain. So whatever like basic things we taught, this is the signal here. This is FB. This is minus FB. Okay, FB is this is the bandwidth of a signal, and base band frequency is FB. So this is it can be represented like this. So if I sample this according to Nyquist criteria, if the frequency of this signal is FB, so I can sample at a frequency of, what will be the sampling frequency? Twice that, means 2 FB. But then the quantization noise, if you sample, the quantization noise will be very high, like this will be the quantization noise. So once the noise is high, you cannot get the resolution. The desired resolution, you will not be able to get the desired resolution. So what you do is, you sample at a very high frequency, say 2000 times, not 2 times. If you sample at 2000 times, then what happens is your noise is getting distributed. So this noise, which was like this, it gets distributed like this. This is your sampling frequency Fs, and here also minus Fs. So the noise is getting distributed. This noise is same, which were earlier coming in this block, area will be same. It is getting distributed like this. Since our bandwidth is this only. Okay, so this noise will be this much, which is affecting it. This noise is not affecting, but it is at higher frequencies. And we can make digital circuit to cut this noise. Okay, so if we put this in a sigma delta modulator, then the response, this response will be like this. Like this. It will like this. So now what is the noise in the band? The noise is only this much. Okay, and this is say first order, second order. If you go for higher order, third order, so it will again shape like this. It will again shape like this. So here the noise is only this one. This is very less noise. And most of this noise is coming here at a higher frequencies. Okay, so in this the scheme is, there is a sigma delta modulator, and then there is a filter, which is a digital filter. Okay, sigma delta modulator, it will generate a sequence of 0, 1 like this, and digital filter, it will cut this, all these things. So many of this sequence of is coming. So we need only 24 bits. So from thousands of bits, it will cut these relevant bits. So that is the sync filter, they call it sync 3 filter or sync 5 filter. So extra bits are cut, and the relevant bits are you want 24-bit resolution, so 24-bit will be coming. So now what happens is, in a sigma delta, you have a sine wave like this. So you have to sample. In the sample is this is time. So you take this point. Say this is 1.1 volt. So there is a sample and hold circuit S and H. What means? This means there is a capacitance here, right? And this point you will charge this capacitor. So there is a concept of double sampling. Double sampling means you sample twice. At the same this point, you do sample it two times. Okay, once you sample this, you get one. Again, you sample at this point. There is another capacitor. So this you sample, this you sample. Okay, and then you subtract this. Okay, if you subtract, if it's the same sample 1.1, 1.1, you will not get anything. If there is some offset, that will get reduced. There is a chance that there is some offset. What is the meaning of offset? Instead of this signal, if there is an offset, this signal will be somewhat drifted like this. Right now at this point. Now from here you can see this signal has got drifted this much. But if you sample this signal at two times and then subtract, so this difference will be eliminated. So these offsets are eliminated. So that is the reason which is written correlated double sampler integrator is used. Okay, so now here, since this is an analog input, and here you will either convert to some sensor output or something. Some sensor may give 1 millivolt output, some sensor may give 1 microvolt, some may give 50 microvolt. So how to interface that? So that is the reason you have to put one gain amplifier here, because this input is fixed. Okay, so if this is 1 millivolt, you can set the gain to say 1 only. If this is 1 microvolt, you can set the gain to higher, some 100, so that 1 microvolt into 100 it becomes a. Okay, so you have flexibility in this. That is a programmable gain amplifier. So programmable gain amplifier can take various inputs of these values, and you can adjust this in digital form. And so this circuit can be used for many applications. So this is the concept which is highlighted here. Okay, so this is the concept which is highlighted now. To do this, there are ways to do the modeling. You do by SPICE, or you do a behavioral modeling integration phase and your sampling phase. These are the equations, and this you can solve by using MATLAB. So this you can see these were solved by using MATLAB, and these were compared within SPICE modeling, and the error was less than 5%. Okay, now the critical for physical design is very, very critical, because the interference, it has to be matching. Last time we discussed that unless your components are matched, you will not be able to get the ultimate performance. And here, this is the it's a switched capacitor. So there's a feedback capacitor, there's a sampling capacitor, there's integrating capacitors. So you have to make there are 144 unit capacitors. So this 144, you can see this is a unit capacitors. So they are connected in a centroid fashion, and so that the parasitic is minimized of CS, CR, CREF and CF. So this takes considerable time and routing of these signals, routing of unit capacitance in a compact area. So this is the design criticality in this. So overall, this is how the chip looks. So you can see it is 3.7 mm. This is 3.7 mm. This is the distal portion this way, and this is the first. This is the biasing circuit, band gap reference. This is the modulator. This is the first order modulator, first stage. This is the second stage. This violet color you are seeing, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is that capacitor bank which I was saying. This one. These capacitor banks of these CS, CREF and CF. So these four are these capacitor banks. These are the switches, yellow. So you saw so many switches in that circuit. So many like these. So many switches are there, right? So these switches, these are yellow colored. These switches have been placed here, here, and here. Since this circuit needs two power supplies, 1.8 and 3.3, this circuit works at 1.8. This whole digital circuit works at 1.8, analog circuit works at 3.3. But from outside only 3.3 volt is given, and 1.8 is generated inside. So this part, this is an LDO. This generates 1.8, and voltage regulator needs very big coupling capacitor, decoupling capacitors. So this is a decoupling capacitor. This one and this one. So wherever there was space, we have put the capacitor. Some capacitors, many capacitors are put here, and some capacitors, this greenish, are put here. So these are decoupling. These capacitors are capacitors which are used in the switching circuit, switch cap circuits. This violet color. So this is how the whole circuit looks like. These are the pads. This is pad. This is pad. These are the pad. Okay, so now this was tested using, this is a mixed signal tester. So this was tested. This is how the device looks. This is the probe card. So these are the testing results: effective number of bits, non-linearity, integral non-linearity, CMRR, and these are the various curve: offset versus temperature. You can see offset ppm per of full scale. So this is a parts per million. Gain versus temperature. You can see the linearity, the gain, PSRR versus frequency, band gap references at no load, almost same, 1.24. So these different parameters. Then for radiation hardening, it's in cobalt 60 gamma chamber. So it was tested for radiationing. So these are the results of the radiationing. Then for single event upset, single event latch up. So this was tested for that, and these are the results for those. And to summarize, so these were the targeted value, and these values were achieved. 24 bits. Gain was this. Integral non-linearity 30 less than 30 ppm. Effective number of bit we got 19.5, and 300 ppm of FS. And these are the various PSR 80 dB and CMRR 90 dB. So these were the specifications which were achieved. And taking it further, since this was a single core, so we have made one circuit where there are 16 core sigma delta, 16 channel. So you can see this is one channel, 1 2 3 4, like this. So these 16 ADCs are put here, and 32 is DAX. This one, red color one, they are D2As. So they are put in each 16-bit ADC. There is an IDAC, which is for offset correction. So these are put, and now it has become a big SoC, which is 8.5 mm here and 8.5 mm here. So many circuits are put inside this one block. And this also is a radiation hardened, in the sense it is immune to any radiation. It will not affect any radiation. So this is another device which is a pipeline ADC. As I told, there are different types of algorithm, different types of structures and topologies which are used in designing A to D, different types of architecture. So pipeline, you can have a high frequency, you can have a high sample rate, high signal, 20 megahertz. Also you can sample at 20 megahertz, but the number of bits cannot be high. It is a 14-bit here, which we have designed. So I will just show you this is the 14-bit ADC, which is a pipeline. So the stages, in the sense, the pipeline means it's just like a bubble sort or a binary search you have read in a software. What is the meaning of a binary search? There is a signal is coming. So this is the input signal. So you give it to there is a sub ADC. It's a 1-bit ADC. So either like 0 to 5 volt, and at 2.5, if the signal is 2.5, you generate 1 bit. If the signal like 0, if it is less than 2.5, if it is more than 2.5, you generate 1. And this ADC, then you generate a DAC and convert back to reference voltage. Okay, you subtract this, multiply it by 2, and go to the next stage. It is just a algorithm which if you have done which is known as a binary search. How the binary search is done? There is you divide the number by 2, and then see whether it lies in the upper half or the lower half. Okay, if it lies in the lower half, then again you divide by 2. We see in the lower and upper, then again, then you reach that number. Okay, so that concept is used here in a pipe, designing a pipeline EDC. So these are some of the issues. I will skip those. These are other ADCs which are designed having a different specifications. So I will close at this. If there are any questions, you please ask if there are any questions.